With Outbreak coming out in a few days, I wanted to do a rundown of how to do the Firebase Z Easter egg as well as what I do differently to make it a bit easier. Keep in mind, some luck and restarting may be involved in this method, and this guide also has a solo player focus, but you can still do it with multiple people if that's your choice. Before we get started, I want to talk about loadouts. I'm sure that you're tempted to bring in your Gallo, but hold off on it for this time. For this Easter egg, you're going to need a weapon with a bit more precision when it comes to just how much damage you're outputting, and for this I recommend an SMG. In this video, I'm going to be using the MAC-10 Gallantry blueprint, but any SMG will work. When you spawn in, the first thing you're going to want to do is talk to the homie Ravenov. And then from there, you're either going to want to buy the door or hop your way up to the teleporter and go straight to the main area of the map. Where my method differs from regular runs is instead of starting the generators as soon as possible, we're actually going to stay inside this helipad area for a few rounds and do challenges. Now by doing this, we get a few things accomplished. Almost all of the challenges are going to revolve around kills, because all the areas that have survived in challenges besides helipad and courtyard are locked off to you, so therefore you can't get them. You can still get unlucky and have things like take damage, recover health, which actually can work out pretty well for you, or something along the lines of rebuild barricades, but as long as you don't get that, you can fly through them pretty quickly. Also, doing this gives you a good chance to get your points up and earn some salvage before you move on, making the progression in the first little bit pretty easy. And don't worry about burning rounds. This video has me reaching the boss about round 15, so you'll get there before the enemies get too intense. The main goal of doing this is before you leave the main area, you want to have the Ray K. If you complete your first set of legendary challenges and you feel like you can do one more and still be fine on time, then I'd say go ahead and do it, but otherwise, if you don't have the Ray K, it's probably time to restart. Doing this through this method makes it where you don't have to do the side Easter egg for the Ray K itself. It also makes it where going through the generators, you have a pretty strong weapon to get those soul kills really easily, and if you don't like the SMG or whatever you happen to have brought in with you, you now have a much better option at your disposal. Next, you just progress through the map like normal, turning on the power and making your way around the map. After the third Jenny is powered on, you've got some running around to do. Head back to Ravenov and you'll see the Pack-a-Punch machine turn on. That's how you know that you're good to go back. From there, you'll make your way to Mission Control and see where some shutters were once closed. Dr. Peck is now ready to speak with you. After interacting with him, you'll make your way back to Ravenov and you'll speak to him once again to get a locker keycard, which you'll need to use to collect 3 vials located across the map. The first vial is across the courtyard from Ravenov in equipment storage. After you grab that one, the other 2 are inside of the Firebase itself. When you go through the teleporter, if you take a left into the open lot, you'll come into engineering. Inside a hallway there, you'll find the second one. If you head up the stairs in engineering and take the sky bridge, you'll see the colonel's office dead ahead of you, with the third and final vial waiting inside. Once all 3 vials are collected, you'll head to the field hospital located in the back of barracks. You'll see a centrifuge on the table that will ask you to interact with it. Once you do, all 3 vials will be placed inside, and one of them will shatter, causing a group of hellhounds to spawn. My advice is to leave the tent and fight them on the outside, since once you kill them, they explode into a little puddle of napalm. And then after about 20 seconds, you can run back inside, interact with the machine once again to move the chemicals to the device next to it, which you can then pick up and take over to the ventilation system underneath the dome. This will cause Peck to start speaking to you, and you can go up to the window and watch him pretty much uninterrupted. The zombies will leave you alone while he's talking to you and doing his little dance. Shortly after, though, you should be prompted to talk to him again, and once you get his attention, he'll direct you towards the data center. From there, we have most people's least favorite step, and the reason why I told you to bring an SMG in the first place. I'm calling this the Pokemon step. Inside the data center is this memory machine with special grenades that work as Pokeballs. You have to capture 3 specific mimics to get the memories that you need, and they spawn in 3 specific locations. The military command control room, the motor pool, and Peck's quarters, which is inside the village portion of the map. When you enter one of those areas, you'll see a bunch of fake drops on the ground, and that's how you know that you're in the right spot. I tend to do one of 2 things. Either try to catch it at the very beginning of a round before everything is spawned in, which requires some luck in being at the right place at the right time, or waiting until the round is near over and then trying to find and capture it. You have to get the Mimic down to as close as 1 shot as possible. and your SMG is going to be really good for this. Then you'll throw your trap down and activate it when the mimic is in range. The trap will hold the mimic still, so you can shoot it in its legs for extra damage just to be sure you get it right where you need it to be. If its health isn't low enough, it'll break the trap and you'll have to grab another one and try to catch it again. But if you kill it, then you have to wait until the next round, so you really got to be careful here. After a successful capture, you'll pick up the Pokeball and return it to the data center where you got it from, while also picking up a spare one for the next mimic. Once all 3 special mimics have been caught, the computer will print out a floppy disk that you'll take over to the planning's office and insert it into a terminal there. Afterwards, the dome will open up and you'll be able to get a look at what's going on inside there. Once you're done with that step, go speak to Peck. But while he talks, run outside to the area across from him, and inside a bunker, there will be a shovel by a window. Grab that and return to Peck. Once he's done talking, he'll shut his shutters, and Ravenov will call you and give you the code to Peck's locker, giving you a magical metal detector. You'll want to go to 3 different areas on the map and locate dig sites. Once you find these dig sites, you'll dig up a container for an aether crystal, and you'll have to do a certain challenge before you can obtain it. The first one up is the field hospital. This one is the one that you need the Reiki for. Once you dig it up, the container will teleport nearby, and it'll leave a little trail. You'll have to follow the trail it leaves and shoot it with the Reiki secondary fire to slow it down and then pick it up. 1 down, 2 to go. The next one that we're going to get is inside the open lot in a corner. When you dig it up, a bunch of containers that look just like it are going to spawn all over the area. However, when you look inside of them, you'll notice that the aether crystals contained are shrouded. You want to look around for a crystal that doesn't have any kind of shadow or anything. And that can be a little bit rough. There's quite a few locations, so if you need some extra time, you can use the Pokeballs from earlier, get a zombie down to about 1 hit and trap him inside. That'll give you 3 minutes to look uninterrupted if it's the last one on the map. Once you find the one that is completely clear of any shadows, you'll pick it up, it'll go into your inventory, and you can move on to the third one. That being said, if you pick the wrong one, about 6 or 7 mimics are going to spawn in and attack you all at once, so this is one that you really don't want to get wrong. The third and final container is inside of the jungle defense zone. Now, I want to say if you didn't use the Pokeball trick for the last step, then I definitely recommend you doing it for this one. What you'll wind up doing is you dig up the container and a dome will spawn around you. From that point forward, a Mangler and Hellhounds are going to consistently spawn on you. After you kill the first Mangler, you basically just have to kill Hellhounds until a second Mangler spawns, and when you kill him, the dome will cease to exist. You can grab the container and move forward. If you don't use one of the Pokeball traps on like the last zombie on the map, then you'll be attacked by zombies as well as the Hellhounds and Manglers, and it can get really, really tricky. So I 100% recommend trapping a zombie before you go and do this step, just to save yourself some time. Alright, we're getting close to the end. Alright, so now that you have all 3 containers, you're going to want to go to the generators that you used to turn on the power at the beginning of the match, and walk up to the crystals and just interact with it. The crystals will go inside the container, and that's what we're going to use to power up the portal inside the dome. Once you collect all 3, walk back up to the dome, and you'll see it start to flicker a little bit again, and then we can move on to the final step before the boss fight. After the portal shuts off in some dialogue, you'll have to go into planning offices and interact with the computer, in which you'll be aligning a satellite. Now, if you didn't use that Pokeball trick in either of the previous 2 steps I mentioned, you'll definitely be using it here. The controls for moving the cursor are very strange. The keys are in weird places. I'm sure maybe on a controller it works a lot better, but on keyboard it's rough. You're going to need the extra time. You're going to be moving the cursor around until you find a blip on the map that has a question mark as the flag. Once you see that, you'll confirm it, and some lasers are going to shoot off, and you'll just head up to the dome and interact with the computer once all the dialogue is done, and you'll be headed into the final boss fight. Before we go there, though, just some notes I'd want to leave. Make sure that you have all the perks that you need. Make sure that your weapons are as upgraded as possible. I recommend upgrading the Reiki. That's really good for damage against the boss. And I also recommend bringing an artillery kill streak if you can afford it. While fighting the final boss, he has a few attacks that you need to be aware of. He'll slam his arm down in a decent length in front of him, and if you're caught in that, it's an instant down. He can fire these flame flies from his hands, and if it comes in contact with you, it'll do about 100 damage, and then some burning after. And then he also shoots out hellhounds from his mouth, I believe. And when he's doing the hellhound shooting attack, his mouth lights up, and you can shoot at it for crit damage. While you're fighting the boss, manglers, mimics, and if you got to round 25, hellhounds would be spawning, coming after you throughout the fight. A good thing to do is right when you get in, drop the artillery strike and then pop shots into them when you can. And then when the special zombies are pouring in, eliminate them as they come at you. Make sure the boss is like a secondary focus, but also take cover from his attacks as much as possible. Once the special zombies clear out, you can start firing on the boss again with your Reiki or whatever weapon you have upgraded. Ring of Fire does not do extra damage to the boss. I don't know why, but it doesn't. So if you have that field upgrade on, make sure that you're using that for the specials. Otherwise, you'll just be wasting it. The fight is pretty easy. It can get a little bit hectic in solo if you're not being careful, but as long as you're clearing out your special enemies before going on to deal damage to the boss, you should have it in like a couple minutes. And once it's all said and done, you will get the ending cutscene, and that will be the end of the Easter egg. I kind of went out of my way to make sure that there was as little dialogue and as little cutscenes in this as possible, because I'd like you to be able to experience this for yourself. Now, what's easiest for me might not be easiest for you, but I see that this Call of Duty is the most accessible in terms of its zombies, and I kind of want to put out methods that I view to be even more accessible, so that way people who maybe don't get zombies can still get in there and experience the storyline for themselves, and this is something that I think makes that a little bit easier. So I hope that this helped and maybe broke down some steps that some online guides are a bit iffy about, and I can't wait to make video content for Outbreak.